Hello. Today I will be featuring a ship that I haven't touched on in a while, but a ship that doesn't really change too much, and that's the Bayern. Now, when this ship came out, I already said it was probably one of the better, one of the stronger all-round ships. It really doesn't have any obvious weaknesses. I mean, it does have the issue of having only eight guns in comparison to New Mexico Fuso, who both get 12 guns, but it's not a direct weakness because 380mm guns tend to more than be compensation more than enough to make up for this. Now, more guns of course means that you are stronger against cruisers, but having the additional penetration and the additional gun power of these 380mm guns means that you can take on pretty much anything at this tier, and you can overmatch it regardless of angle as well, which is of course one of the strengths. And here I actually spot one of my favorite targets in the entire world when I'm playing, well, not just the Dunkirk, but any tier 6 battleship, and that's of course the Dunkirk. The Dunkirk's main issue is, well, if you try to play it quick and fast like this guy is doing, well, first of all, it's not fast enough to actually be able to maneuver like the way you would hope. And second of all, the thing has no armor at all. It's completely paper. So it's obviously one of my favorite targets to take pot shots at. Especially if you get broadside like this, because it does have a sizable citadel. Oh, is it going to keep going in a straight line? Now, of course, German Dispersion. It's kind of a crapshoot where your shells will land. I end up getting pretty good actually, 4 hits, I'll take it. But overall, it's not really the best ship in dealing with cruisers at long range. Because once again, having only 8 guns and the extremely somewhat random German dispersion means that well, you need luck to get those citadels. It's not like the Fuso or New Mexico where you kind of end up deleting cruisers left, right, and center without even trying. This ship definitely has some issues in that sense. But on the other hand, this ship is extremely tanky. You might notice I'm parked here without really any worries. Well, just as I say that, of course, the Congo does take a chunk out of me, but the ship is extremely tanky. The citadel is protected, of course, by a turtleback, like on all German battleships, and overall it has good anti-air, it's decently fast, it handles well. I mean, there are no obvious weaknesses. It's got decent anti-air as well. That's always been the thing of the Bayern. It's an all-round ship. No obvious weaknesses, but not any really too obvious strengths either. It's just an overall good tier 6 battleship. And I think a lot of people struggle with this ship is because they lose a gun coming from the Koenig to this one. They go from 10 guns to 8 guns, and players who have, for example, played a lot of Warspite, they probably feel very comfortable in the ship, because it does feel quite a lot like the Warspite. Just that the guns don't quite have the same penetration and the same accuracy as you have on the Warspite. But it's a strong all-round ship, not too fast, but it has no real soft spot. Unlike, of course, the Warspite is very slow, the Bayern does have a decent amount of maneuverability. Team kill, that's always nice. Here's, of course, you can overmatch the bows of tier 5s and tier 6 ships. In this case, I went for his guns since he was aiming at me, and you might have noticed that I actually permanently destroyed one of the guns. So, poor guy, but not really my problem. And I switched target since he's not really much of a threat to me, and I don't really bother wasting shells on him, since the Bayern there is a much better target. He is actually in my secondary range at Konga, so my secondaries might nail him. I have a fire, but as I've said multiple times in the past, one fire is never worth repairing. Fire damage is light damage, which means you can heal 100% of the damage. There's no point wasting a repair, because if you get set on double fire or you get a flooding or any sort of issue afterwards, then you're actually going to be in serious trouble. So one fire, it can just burn out, I don't care. Bayern, this guy is giving, this is actually a very common German battleship mistake this Bayern is doing, and I feel like that's one of the main design flaws when it comes to the ships, is that because they have a protected citadel, people never really learn to avoid giving broadside. So people give far too much broadside in the German battleships, and they eat these massive chunks of damage in them, but they don't get that citadel deletion, so they never really learn that they should be angling much basically much better than they are. In battleships that don't have citadel, they tend to get this harsh lesson, but in German battleships they never really get that lesson, so they never understand to stop angling. So of course you should angle. Just because you have a protected citadel doesn't mean that you can take significantly reduced damage as long as you remember to angle. But these people just don't understand it. They tend to give a lot of broadside and they think they're safe because, well, hey, no citadel, but you eat a ton of additional damage. This is also one of the issues with people who play the Bayern, for example. I mean, not the Bayern, the Bismarck. They give full broadside because they want all their secondaries to fire at the target. So their secondaries deal maybe 5,000 damage. In the meantime, in return, they take 20,000 damage, AP damage through the broadside because they aren't angling at all. And that kind of stuff, you see it every day. You see it almost every game with the average Bismarck player as well. And that's of course a common mistake. Now I'm being shot at quite a lot. I think I'm actually tanking almost all the enemy team. I have the Dunkirk shooting at me, I have the Leander, I have a bunch of targets on me. This Leander though is giving full broadside, and this is he really stopping? I'm expecting him to pop the smoke, but it's not, it's just reversing. Now he pops the smoke. Wow, that's the most delayed smoke ever. I take the second shot as well, as long as I have my crosshair on him. Hopefully I'll be able to nail him. Once again though, German dispersion. As soon as I've taken my shots though, I make sure to not just angle against him, but also against the Dunkirk, who is now aggressively pushing towards me. Full reverse, and I'm making sure I stay angled, because, well, not only is the Leander shooting me, but the Dunkirk. And the Dunkirk actually switches to HE when I angle like this, which is quite smart, because against a fully angled Bayern, he's really not going to be doing much. But Dunkirk has 1.7 Sigma, so even though his aim might be on point, his shells land pretty much all over the place. One fire, no panic. Yeah, I still have 6,000 HP, so this one fire isn't going to kill me yet, and I almost got my heal up, and once again, I will be healing 100% of this fire damage. So instead of panicking and burning my repair now, I'm just going to start healing. Now I have 2 fires. You see, I waited until I actually saw 2 fires, and then I instantly blow my repair. And that's something people really need to keep in mind. One fire is never really a big deal. It's not a lot of damage. People overestimate the damage fires do. They tend to be more of an annoyance than an actual killing blow, unless you got like 3 or 4 fires on you. That's lethal. But one fire is not a big deal, so don't bother too much with it. Now my team, I'm not entirely certain what my team is doing. For some reason they're pushing around the left flank. They're very healthy, but none of them really want to fight around this epicenter, which is what I've been trying to hold. But I'm not too worried. Because of my reversing, I've managed to heal up, and I'm back up to a semi-healthy 11k. You might have noticed, by the way, that my position on this map has been very, very central the entire time. That's of course something I always mention when you have slow battleships, when you're playing slow battleships, especially ships that have not the best dispersion, like for example the Bayern. You've noticed that I've been playing a very, very central position. I don't go too deep. I don't get into a position where I can no longer angle against my opponents. I've been able to remain angled against all my opponents at all times. I've been able to disengage if need be. Hell, if I get super focused, I could even duck behind this island in front of me. But ultimately, the goal has always been to remain in a central position where I can shoot at pretty much everyone. But I'm not pushed in deep enough that I can get flanked, and I can get shot in the side, where all the strength of my armor goes out the window and all the strength of the German battleships basically go out the window. My last heal now. See if I can take on this Budyonni. Of course, with these guns the Budyonni can't angle against me at all. One of the strengths of the Budyonni is of course the great armor it has. but he can't really angle against me very well. Because, well, 380mm guns, they kind of pen through everything. He is giving me a lot of broadside though, so if RNG gods do not screw me over, well, sadly 3 overpens. I was hoping for something better. He is still spamming HE. Of course, you got to remember Budyoni does have torpedoes. Budyoni actually has really good YOLO torpedoes if he gets close enough. And I can only assume with the way he's rushing me, that is his goal. And this game still isn't won by any means. One fire, but I'm actively fighting someone who not only is spamming HE, but also has torpedoes. So I do not want to blow my repair on this fire. Absolutely do not want to blow. This is something you also see. You YOLO in, you shoot your guns, so they blow their repair, and then you die as you launch your torps, but you get one hit and a flooding, and then you get like just a flesh wound from those. Now I blow my repair because I know he's launching his torps. He gives the broadside and he's going to die. I know he's launching his torps because he made that wide turn. So I know that if I turn sharply enough, as I do now, then I will be able to evade them. That's always a telltale sign of torpedoes being launched. If a cruiser is rushing you like that, first of all, it requires of course some game knowledge to know which ship has torpedoes and which doesn't, but you should be able to learn that quite quickly. But if you see a cruiser give you full broadside at close range, if they keep angled the entire way until they're right next to you and then they start giving full broadside, they are launching torps. 100% guaranteed. And you saw as soon as he did that, I turned sharp left and I avoided them. But that's something, once again, I see a lot of people fall for. But if you see IGN cruisers, all of them have torps pretty much. If you see them do that, they rush in and they turn broadside, that's a good sign for you to avoid. Also, don't blow your repair needlessly. I've been very, very conservative with my repair, and you can see I still have a quarter of my HP left, and I've been in the fight since the start. This is what, 40 minutes into the game, and I've been fighting pretty much non-stop, and I have no issues staying alive, even with how conservative I've been with my repair. And that's of course the heal. The heal. As long as you heal 100% of fire damage in small doses is never a big issue. That's one of the things that kind of annoys me, is how battleship players in general tend to overblow the significance of fires like it's the end of the world. And fires are not really that big of a deal if you manage both your positioning and your repair accurately. Of course, there are situations where fires will get you killed, like you eat the torpedo, everyone sees you eat the torpedo, you blow repair on the flooding, and then you get the HE spam to death. Yes, it does happen, but how often it actually happens is quite rare. It's not that big of a deal. Overall though, the Bayern itself, I play it very much like any slow-moving battleship with not the best amount of guns or dispersion, but a tankiness and good penetration. That is, of course, as I've shown here in this Epicenter game, a very central role where I can not just tank actively, but also deal damage to pretty much everyone actively. And I've tried to remain. You see the angle I'm holding? This is probably the most favored angle. You turn a bit more left only when you need to shoot your guns, or a bit more right, you see. You turn just when you need to shoot your guns, and then as soon as I've shot my guns, I turn back left again, because, well, there's no point to give anyone this much broadside while my guns are reloading. So as soon as you only give that broadside when you need to shoot, the rest of the time you spend angled. That's also basic cruiser gameplay that applies to battleships extremely well. Anyway, this game ended, 182,000 damage. Of course, not surprisingly, Dreadnought and Fireproof. These are not hard achievements to farm. You just don't get too wasteful with your HP pool. And, well, 4 kills, no Kraken sadly, but you can't get it all. Looking at base XP, 2.3 thousand, which is of course nice. You might notice, for example, the Fuso, who was playing superbly passive and was almost full HP the entire time and flanking around the left, he almost got no XP. And that's not really surprising, because you can't play that far out of position in a battleship and hope to be rewarded. And of course, finally, detailed report. Potential damage, 1.8 million, that's the shell shot at me. Damage received, 89,000 damage. Now consider that this ship has what, 53,000 HP, and you realize that I tanked well over my, I tanked what, like 160% of my own HP pool, and I was still alive and without any issues towards the end. And the fires that seemed so that I kept ignoring, that I let burn through, they only did 21,000 damage, and that was all healable damage. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Overall, though, of course, only shot AP. Secondaries did very little, but overall, the Bayern is still an overall extremely solid German battleship. I don't consider it one of the strongest ones. I still think ships like the Fuso, simply because of the sheer firepower it has, is stronger, but it's just a very, very solid tier 6 battleship that can, thanks to the big caliber guns, it punches up extremely well as well. So not much has changed when it comes to this ship. Let's move on to my recommended build. Right, starting off, first of all, you want to get the hull. The Bayern B hull gives you a massive amount of things. It gives you concealment, maneuverability, it gives you hugely increased anti-air, it gives you HP, and it even gives you main battery gun range. So yes, hull first, absolutely. Once you have the hull upgraded, then you can move on and get the engine upgrade, because the engine upgrade actually gives you 10%, 2.5 knots, which is of course a huge deal. You don't need a gun range if you get the hull range first, because you will have 16 km range. Once you have the hull upgrade and the engine, then you can get the gun range. Consumable wise, of course, repair and heal premium as you can afford them. The repair is more important. And moving on to upgrades, I'm showing this on the Bismarck since I've already sold my Bayern. Main armaments mod 1, aiming systems mod 1, damage control system mod 1, because you'd rarely lose engine or rudder, and finally I prefer damage control system 2. Now there is some, you might run steering gears if you don't have hull upgrades yet. I don't even know if you can run that on the Bayern. It might not even have access to that one yet. Captain perks, preventive maintenance, squishy turrets, and of course later on you want it against to keep your torpedo tubes alive. Expert Marksman, once again this is a sketchy perk, very sketchy perk, because you kind of don't want it when you get higher tier. You rather want to be using Adrenaline Rush, but on the lower tiers the Expert Marksman is a very, very nice perk. So if you can live without it, just go straight to Adrenaline Rush. Superintendent, and once again, if you want to go for the secondary Bismarck build, as I'm going here, then AFT is the best perk. If you don't want to go for the secondary build, then manual AA is the best perk. But ultimately, of course, I'm working towards manual fire control for secondaries for my Bismarck on the Russian server. But if you don't want this, then just get manual AA, which will greatly, greatly increase your anti-air. Just like it does on the Tirpitz, it will hugely increase it on not just the Bayern itself, but all upcoming German battleships afterwards. So that, of course, well, I mean, even the Bayern has what? 6x2 105mm guns that will benefit. But that decision I leave up to you. That was my Bayern commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.